The first race is this week. Are you excited? Like inside yourself, like
extremely excited.
You love this stuff.
Absolutely. I have to admit that when I officially heard the news that we were going to be returning to Formula One, I cried. And then the second moment was when they showed us the trackside placement of our logo. I cried once more.
Do you feel that visceral connection, reconnection to TAG, a brand that's been inseparable from Formula One? TAG Heuer is back in Formula One, and we are back in the belly of the beast. Nick Biebuyck, the Heritage Director of TAG Heuer, good to be here. Where are we? Tell the people.
So we're in the TAG Heuer archive. So this is the room containing more than 3,000 watches that represent the company history. Of course, separately we have a huge paper archive elsewhere, but here you'll get to see magical things like helmets and clocks and accessories, but of course, many, many watches.
I'm so privileged to have been here before, and I have to say, Nick, you have cleaned up your act. Last time I was here, this was a messy teenage bedroom. It was a bedroom of dreams for a watch lover, but this has really gone through a transition since you've taken over.
Thank you. Yes, we've been making some efforts to get everything in order, and I'm glad that you've recognised that we've made some progress.
It's Formula One week. This is the week of the first race of the first year that TAG Heuer is back. What does that tagline mean? TAG Heuer is back. We're back.
For me, it's very straightforward. We are the watch brand of motorsport. We are the watch brand of F1. Of course, there's many other watch manufacturers that want to talk about this topic, but in fact, they can't hold a candle to us and our legacy. We have hundreds and decades and decades of legitimacy with this position, and I'll be very happy to talk you through some of my favorite pieces that really celebrate this.
Love that segue. This man is a professional. He's led me straight into the point of this video. If you're watching this video, you want to know why that fighting claim, those fighting words are true. I listened to your podcast where you talked about this, where you said other brands claim legitimacy ever since 1860, and then 1880 when the first chronograph started being produced. Heuer, to become TAG Heuer, has been all about motorsport. So prove it to me.
So, first to start with, of course, founded in 1860, and this year we're celebrating 165 years as a brand. The beautiful thing is that innovation has been at the very center of what we do since our creation. As you mentioned, in the 1880s, we can already see reference to the brand being a focus in stopwatches and timekeeping precision devices. And really, that's where we have to start the story. So if we're talking about stopwatches and the timekeeping element of things, of course, we've got fantastic things like the Mikrograph. We have many examples of these early 1/100th of a second stopwatches. So, for example, here's a micro split, in fact. So it's a rattrapant version of the 1/100th of a second chronograph that was launched in 1916.
Let's put a chronograph into an automobile. Do you have something, one of those sexy dash clocks, or,
Sure.
or what are they called?
Dashboard timers. Yeah,
Time of trips.
We have the Rally-Master. So first we have the time of trip, which was launched in 1911, the first dashboard-mounted chronograph. We have one in the vitrine of the museum, but that would evolve first into what we call the Autavia and the Revue. In 1933, we'd see the launch of the Autavia. So here we can see an early Autavia and Revue. Here's another pair as well. But the real big transition would occur in 1958 when, as Jack would be joining the business, we would see the debut of the Rally-Master. So this would be the combination of a master time and what was first called an auto rally and would eventually be called the Monte Carlo. But one of my favorites is this piece here. So this was a set presented for the first in-class prize at the 1959 International Rally de Genève. And here you can see this lovely typography for the Monte Carlo name, the Auto Rally signature as well. And these are really just wonderful, wonderful things.
Guess who's filming, guys? It's Marcus. And Marcus, are you feeling some sort of weird flashback to looking at these a lot?
Yes.
Tell the people.
A lot. It's about effing time.
It's about effing time. We had one of these with the Bamford customization on the desk for every single series. So I'm getting some major flashbacks. Where do we go from the first dash-mounted timers to another fact-proving?
Sure. But of course, I think what most people know us for is the wristwatches. And there's many great stories that we can celebrate here. So I think the first place to start is around 1965, 66. In fact, I think exactly it was 1967. We have the first pictures of Jochen Rindt wearing an Autavia in the paddock. Of course, celebrated Austrian Formula One driver with his very elegant wife, Nina Rindt, who of course was associated with some other watches. But Jochen himself chose to wear Heuer. This was really the watch of the professional racing driver, aside from any other brand. And yeah, here we have a selection of everything from very early Autavia. This is a reference 3646 2-register Big Eye chronograph from the first year of production in 1962. Really significant watches such as the motor age pieces that were presented to the fastest qualifying lap drivers at the Indianapolis 500. We're lucky to have 2 in the museum collection today. In fact, I think, not this one. Amazingly, 2 came across my inbox in very quick succession, both coming out of the US. This one you can see arrived. It's got there with 2 variations of the signature. Luckily, we have 1 of each now. But the cool thing is, okay, the conditions beautiful for me. We have the bezel for it as well, but engraved on the case back it says 1965 Indianapolis 500. So I know we're here to talk about Formula One, but of course Indy is a huge part of our history as well, whether it's the other Autavias with the logo, but today of course we're the official timekeeper and scorekeeper for Indy 500. So yeah, Autavia, a nice story to begin with, and connecting us to Jochen Rindt.
The 60s are where things get sexy. We have Rindt to Siffert to McQueen.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start? Because both of those human beings transformed the esteem of Heuer in the paddock and also the story of the brand.
Sure.
Where do you want to start?
Well, I'd like to take a little
departure.
Well, a little baby stop in between because I think it's important to talk about the Camaro as well. So this is another great watch that was launched in 1968. So here we have a number of cool examples, but really the one I want to talk about is this one here. So this is the classic configuration of Camaro, and of course absolutely beautiful with its cushion-shaped case. And here we see it with its silver dial and tachymeter scale. I'm going to have to try and extract it now. But what makes this watch famous is not only, of course, the name. It was inspired by the Chevrolet Camaro that had launched the previous year and was the pace car for the Indianapolis 500, so it was easy to understand for Jack, who was really keen to expand the business in North America, to take a name like Camaro. But the really cool thing is in fact, this is the same watch that Jody Scheckter would start by wearing in the paddock. And of course, going into 1979, he would be with Ferrari and he would win the World Championship, of course, with the Heuer logo on the front of the car. So it's cool that early in his career, when he was driving for other teams, he was already wearing Heuer. And of course, when he joined us, he was fully committed, let's say. So Camaro is a great place to start. But yeah, as you've mentioned, Siffert. So of course, 1969, we're leading up to the launch of the Chronomatic, the first globally commercially available automatic chronograph movement. I always have to be careful how I say this because our good friends down the road also have a claim. So here we see a reference 1163 Autavia, and what makes this watch so significant is it's what we call a chronomatic. So for the very first run of production, only a couple of hundred pieces, the idea was to settle on this trade name of chronomatic, automatic chronograph. Jack and the team at Heuer realized quickly that no one knew what the hell this meant, so they decided to just put automatic chronograph on the dial, but Breitling would in fact continue to use the chronomatic name on the dials of some of their watches. So this is a chronomatic Autavia, so we know it's from the very first run. And versus a kind of more standard Siffert Autavia, well, we have my lovely dunked one here that I bought a while ago, which someone went swimming with. It's now like a ball of rust inside, but I had to buy it because I just thought the condition was hilarious. We might restore it one day, but I think it's going to cost more than buying an actual watch. Something like this in good condition would be $10,000 to $15,000. This is $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 just because of the change of signature.
Jack was working on a movement called the Calibre 11, I believe.
Yeah.
That ended up in the Monaco.
Yes.
Which ended up on the wrist of someone famous in a movie.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Calibre 11, of course, a great part of our history, a great part of the watchmaking industry history as well. A joint project between ourselves and Breitling funding everything, Burren producing this micro rotor base, and then Duprat, who we'd already worked with for the jump hour complications on the dashboard timers, creating this chronograph module to fit onto the watch. And of course, the Calibre 11, Joe was of course a key part of the story, but when we catch wind in 1970 that this movie's being filmed around Le Mans with this guy Steve McQueen, it's great that we find a way of being involved. And you might know
Is it still here?
Is
it still here?
Yeah, it's just here. I'm getting to that part. So we're very lucky that, in fact, we own one of the original suits from the filming. The funny story goes is that at the end of production, the suits were given to a German car publication to give away as prizes, and someone won it in Germany, and it had been sitting in an attic, and it showed up at auction, I think, in 2017, and the museum paid, I think, around $300,000 for this original suit. And you can see Hinchman's of Indianapolis. It's the original Nomex underwear. Well, I don't think it's Nomex, but supposedly fire-resistant underwear of Steve McQueen. And here, of course, we can see the famous Heuer patch, Michael Delaney, which was the name of his character, Hinchman's Nomex, Firestone, and the American flag. And all of this was precisely modeled after Joe Siffert's suit. And we have the original invoices from this period of the shipping of timekeeping equipment, stopwatches, dashboard timers. Of course, we've discussed the Monaco, but I think the cousin we need to talk about is the Monza. So let me find the drawer. So for the Monza, a great icon for us. This is actually a very special one that was made for the Japanese racing team, Racing Mate. But the Monza would launch in 1976 to celebrate Niki Lauda's championship win for Ferrari. Ferrari had a terrible run, having last won in 1964. Enzo had basically fired the entire team in 70. They started building their own test track. 71, of course, we would do the deal to become an official partner for Ferrari for timekeeping purposes, first at Feuerano and then with Jean Campiche traveling around the world. So when Lauda won in 75, it was a celebratory moment, and as one of their key partners, we decided to launch the Monza. And of course, today, it's a part of our collection, and it's something we're looking forward to sharing a bit more about in the future.
Enzo's a part of that story as well, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. Well, actually, I think first of all, we can start off by talking about this. It's quite heavy, but
We are just way off
get
track.
it down.
I mean, this is just turning into an absolute...
So in here, we have the main, what's called HL205 in the vitrine, but in here you can see two of the original keyboards from the Le Mans Centigraph. So it's important to note, as I said, that the Ferrari relationship starts as a technical partnership, first with timekeeping for the test track at Feuerano, as well as endurance racing and Formula One. And we developed this special timekeeping device just for Ferrari. Its central piece is the HL205. It was a device that we already made, 1/1000th of a second precision, mainly for industry. But when complemented by the claviers, the keyboards, there would be 3 or 4 of these. Jean or whoever from the team would be able to time the cars passing the track, and they call Jean the pianist because he would be doing this, pressing all the buttons at the same time. But Ferrari was a key part of that story, and as I mentioned, first it starts off with the timekeeping equipment, but when Jack and goes to do the deal with Enzo was like, okay, first of all, I want the equipment for free. Yeah. Second of all, the drivers are really expensive. You need to pay the drivers directly $25,000 each. And Jack says, okay, wait, this doesn't seem like such a great deal. And he says, okay, look, I've got the logo on the car and you've got the equipment for free. I'm going to have the logo on the suits and I can work with the drivers. But what I also want to do is have them come to Switzerland, visit the factory, sign a contract, and I'm going to give each of them a solid gold Carrera.
Is this the 1158?
This is the reference 1158, yeah. So it was both, it was in 3 configurations, silver dial, so we see one here, champagne dial, which I think they're all out for exhibition right now. You can see many of our watches are traveling the world right now for global exhibitions, but I've kept a few key ones, and this is really one of my favorites. As you mentioned, Jack would give them to the Ferrari drivers, but Ronnie Peterson, Jacky, Ickx, Mario Andretti, Clay Regazzone, we have pictures of all of these guys wearing these watches. Often he would engrave messages, good luck for the upcoming season or thanks for the collaboration. He gave one to Mike Hailwood, who wasn't a Ferrari driver, but he gave it to Mike for saving Clay Regadzone's life by pulling him out of a burning car. And it has this nice engraving on the case back, wishing him luck for the next season. But this one's cool because as well as the guys who were gifted the watches, once the guys who were wearing them were winning them, these watches became totally synonymously connected with success, victory, winning. Yeah. And Derek Bell told me that he begged Joe Siffert for a discount on a gold Carrera because he really wanted one. You would have all these guys in the paddocks buying them, and this one, in fact, is exactly one of those watches. So this belonged to Vittorio Brambilla, the so-called gorilla of Monza, celebrated and extremely charismatic character from Italian motor racing history. He would buy this himself, in fact. He wasn't gifted it, but engraved on the case back is an engraving, but in fact it's to Carlo from Dad, the year that Vittorio was born and the year that he passed away. And this was presented to his son. And it was really a great pleasure, I think it was last year, to be able to add this to museum collection and get to know Carlo fairly well, and now have this fantastic piece of motorsport history among the watches today.
Recently reprised by Ryan Gosling in Barbie, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. Well, in fact, I have Ryan's actual watch.
No way.
Yeah, this is the watch that Ryan wore. I mean, he famously, of course, wore 3 watches. This is as Ken. This was one of them. This was another, and then there was another gold Carrera up in this drawer. But the funny story is, of course, we worked with the production team to select a watch for Ken. Okay, what would Ken wear? We have to think about this. We made this selection. We sent them the 3 watches thinking one would show up. And then we have this amazing scene of him wearing all 3 watches.
We are so far off script.
Yeah,
I don't know where we are, but I do know where we are in time. And we're heading towards a tough time for the brand.
Yes, yeah.
The Quartz crisis, or the Quartz revolution if you're Japanese. And we're heading towards a merger with Technique Avant-Garde. What did this mean as a new chapter? And the Formula One was the first sort of, the first materialization of this new partnership.
Absolutely, yeah. So as you mentioned, during the Quartz crisis, Quartz opportunity, Quartz era, however you want to describe it, depending on which nationality you are. 1979, the brand is in a very difficult position. We're financially stretched. Jack had made all the right moves to blow up the brand. The challenge was macroeconomic environment, Quartz threat, production inefficiencies, all of these would come together to make life quite difficult. I mean, in fairness, during this period, he did manage to start making Quartz watches, and a very cool one is the Micro Split, launched in 1975. And in fact, just to tie it back to motorsport, this was a watch specifically made for Ferrari. In fact, this was, this one was Jean Campiche's personal watch, which again, I convinced him to give to the museum. So he was making Quartz watches, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to save the brand from what was coming. So 1982, there's this very unpleasant situation where Jack is basically pushed out by the CFO. He does a backroom deal with Piaget. Piaget take over in 82, predominantly to sell them Le Mans movements because Piaget owned half of Le Mans and for the access to the kind of global distribution network that Heuer had. And then in 1985, Yves Piaget reputedly is sitting on a plane next to this guy that he knows, Akram Uja, and says, Akram's saying, I would really love my conglomerate's 3 letters, Technique d'Avant-Garde, TAG, to be on a European luxury brand. We're in aviation, we're in precision engineering, and Yves is sitting there and he's thinking, wait, but you just bought the McLaren team, you've been involved in Formula One since the 1970s with Williams. If you own a Formula One team, I've got a great opportunity for you. I happen to own the brand totally synonymous with motorsport and timekeeping. You guys should buy Heuer, and it could be called TAG Heuer. So 1985, they're sitting in Geneva negotiating the deal, and they're kind of on the fence, and then someone supposedly drew the red Heuer shield with the Swiss colors, and then the TAG logo on green behind for the colors of Saudi Arabia, which the Ujas kind of made their adopted home, having originally been from Syria. And they're like, okay, yeah, maybe this will work.
Yves Piaget neglected to mention that in a long conversation. What a flex. Oh yeah, I just birthed the brand in a plane.
It was clearly a great opportunity because in fact, Technique d'Avant-Garde, what you're talking about is innovative technologies fundamentally. Heuer was built on innovative technologies. They were celebrating 125 years of the company, even if it was going through a difficult period. And very fortuitously, around this time in early 1985, they'd already started developing a new revolutionary watch. There had been attempts at a kind of accessible entry-level watch under Heuer, famously the Jacky Ickx Easy Rider, one of the first kind of composite watches that went into production. In fact, I have, sorry to keep jumping off at angles. I know we were meant to keep this short, but we do in fact have a couple of Easy Riders, including one signed by Jacky Ickx. So here you see the Easy Rider. Composite case here, chrome-plated with this very inexpensive pin palette movement inside. Unfortunately, the movement was not reliable enough to make the product success. But the foundations, it's fantastic.
Whoa,
I mean, that's the funny thing. You think of the Formula One giving birth to colorful watches. Well, the Easy Rider from 1972 was already doing this. We have green, we have red.
Did that ever make scale? Were these
yeah.
released?
Well, I mean, the funny story is that, 1972, Jacky Ickx is with Ferrari in the endurance racing team. He's young, he's charismatic, he's handsome, he's well-dressed. And Jack's like, wait, this is the perfect guy for us to launch a model that resonates with a younger audience. Siffert's helped us with the automatic chronograph. Jacky can help us with this. So they do this deal. They have the clock in the packaging is in the shape of his helmet, and they launch this collection. Now, the funny part of the story is that they were sold in their thousands. There were many of them out there, but within a year, the return rate is like 40-50% because the movements are just not good.
Yeah.
So it was the right idea, but the technology wasn't fully enough developed. And the funny kind of recovery from this is that the molds had been done for the packaging. So what do they do instead? They turn them into helmet clocks. So Jacky Ickx was the first guy to have his Cavallino model, it was called. But here we have James Hunt, Clay Regazzoni, Joe Siffert, Niki Lauda, of course, Alain Prost eventually. We would have a TAG Heuer design, Johnny Cicchetto.
How did you get one of these clocks? What were they? How did you get one of these clocks? Were they just sold individually?
Yeah. You could buy them. They were in the catalogue from 1975 onwards, if I remember correctly. All of that to say is that, the brand was already aware, even under Heuer, that an entry-level composite watch could be a success. So, of course, the Formula One would arrive 1986, and it would be the first collection to wear this new unified name, TAG Heuer. And the funny thing is we know full well that this was developed as a Heuer watch because the crowns are all signed Heuer. And funnily, if you look at the shield on the strap, the proportions are correct for Heuer, but they have to squeeze the TAG logo in. The logo on the dial is correct because they had time to reprint them. But yeah, it would go on to be among the most, for me, it's probably the most largely produced individual SKU of any watch in the history of watchmaking, because over the next 10 years, they would sell 3 million of them. So it would become a huge commercial success. And, the amazing thing is this landlocked nation that's generally considered to be quite conservative, you have this incredible rainbow array of colors. Yeah. And the story that we've now learned is that, in fact, the target audience was surfers in LA. It has nothing to do with Swatch, that in fact, they wanted to target these guys who were wearing Casio composite watches, and they thought, okay, let's do the same thing. And it would become a true cultural icon. We would see the watch absolutely everywhere. And of course, we relaunched the collection last year with Kith for the collaboration. And of course, it's laying the foundation for some exciting things we have to come in the not too distant future.
I paid £600 for this one, and I'm glad I did, because Marcus, if you do a quick scan over the top, this is the only one in here of this kind.
Oh, we got another here. Yeah, and I have 2 out at the moment, and we have a baby one. But yeah, in fairness, the yellow and the grey is very rare. The cream is very rare. My absolute favourite, the limited edition made for Yukio Katayama, the Japanese Formula One driver who was with Larousse in 1992. The true rainbow piece, blue dial, green bezel, yellow case, red strap, and with Yukio's signature on the crystal. The crazy thing was, these watches were $200, $300 a couple of years ago, and today it's $2,000. So, it's been funny to see the evolution in pricing, but
amazing. So we're at TAG Heuer. That journey begins.
Yes.
Is there anything between that and the sponsorship of Formula One in '92? So we've got another decade. Any big moments in the 80s?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So we've obviously got the story of Ayrton Senna. He joined McLaren in 1988. First season out, he wins with them, driving the MP4/4, the most winning chassis in Formula One history statistically. And of course, everyone knows the Senna pieces. Let me find the exact one that I'm looking for. And we talk about the two-tone watches. Of course, they famously showed up in the recent Netflix series. In fact, they were watches from the museum collection. Most of the Senna designs are out on tour at the moment, but a really cool part of the story is 1988, Senna joins. 1989, he starts wearing the SEL. By 1993, the Series 6000 is launched. He starts wearing this. In 1993, he decides to leave McLaren and go to Williams. So we do an individual deal with him. And whilst we're doing this individual deal, we say, okay, which other young and up-and-coming drivers could we maybe partner with? And there's this new young German gun called Michael Schumacher. And we think, okay, let's do a deal with Michael. So we write the contract. We have 1 year with him. 1994, extremely sadly, Senna would pass away in May of 1994. It was a devastating moment for the brand and for Formula One at large. But Michael would go on to win the championship in 1994. And the funny thing is, at the end of the season, he decides that he wants to give a gift to his, people that have supported him, his agent, his team and everything else. So he would make, I think it was, 28 watches. And here on the dial, you can see F1 Championship 1994. And engraved on the case back, we have Michael's signature. And then this one is one of the original 28. So this is number 7 of the 28. So, okay, we talk about Senna a lot, and rightly so. The guy is a personal hero for me, an icon, not only of motorsport, but of how to live your life. But to also think that, the great driving talent that was Michael Schumacher, that of course everyone associates with Amiga and Audemars Piguet later on. In fact, he started his racing career with TAG Heuer.
Wow. So 92 does bring us also, so there's a bit of overlap there with that period, but that is when the TAG Heuer sponsorship of Formula One begins.
Absolutely.
Which is now resuming in 2025.
Yeah, so 1992, we would sign the deal to become the official timekeeping partner for Formula One. During the 1990s, this magical era for Formula One, the V10 era, the rivalries between Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen. Mika Häkkinen would be with McLaren, who we were with at the time. We have some of his helmets here, in fact. It would just be an incredible period for motorsport. The amazing sound of these V10 engines was just magical.
Yeah. And
the fact that our logo was present on screen as these guys were winning these races, and to be the arbiter of victory.
TAG Heuer's involvement in Formula One wasn't just to do with watches and sponsorship of visible timing. It was also in the way that you brought the experience of Formula One timing to people watching TV. So explain that part.
In the mid-1970s, Jack, Jean, and the timekeeping development team recognized that, in fact, during that period, if you were a spectator of a track, you were expected to have a stopwatch hanging around your neck, and you were meant to be timing the laps and writing the times of the guys that you followed in your program. You look at the programs and you see the gaps for them to do it. And it was an extremely esoteric way of engaging the sport. And they said, okay, the way that people can really enjoy this as entertainment is if we broadcast the timekeeping. We have live timing data. At the track, we have the digital timing boards that show the time. In the pit lanes, we have the TV screens that broadcast it to each of the team management. And at home, it is broadcast over TV and shared with the world. And in fact, in I think 1975 or 1976, Jack, Jean would drive to Nivelles in Belgium with this huge Olivetti data processing computer in a caravan behind them and all this timekeeping equipment. And they do this demonstration to the FIA and to Philip Morris, who basically funded Formula One during this period, and said, look, guys, this is the future. If you want people from a broader market, a broader demographic to engage in motorsport, the entertainment is in the timing. And of course, today, that's exactly what we have.
I do want to finish this. I want to land this big old plane in 2016 and beyond, when Oracle Red Bull Racing and TAG Heuer joined forces and the Red Bull Oracle team. What did this period do for the brand?
I have to make a little pit stop on the way, which is 2008, because 2008 we see one of the greatest talents of motorsport ever, again, who idolizes Senna. Here we have a Senna helmet. Here we have the helmet of the person I'm about to talk about. It's Lewis Hamilton. He joins in Formula One, in McLaren with Ron Dennis. And what's the watch that he wears in the first season? Well, it's a Formula One. And what is the exact watch? As in, this was his own personal watch. It was an orange dial Formula One chronograph. So this is Lewis Hamilton's personal watch. I was very lucky to be able to acquire it from the mechanic that he'd gifted it to. But, to see that Senna, Schumacher, Lauda, all of the greatest driving talents in history, Alain Prost, and of course, on today to Max, have all been synonymously connected to the brand. So, I have to make that little pause. And, really, I think one of the cool watches that doesn't get spoken about so much, but I think is a cool part of the story, is 2016, the first Carrera Red Bull Racing chronograph that was launched. So, Red Bull colors, of course, and on the back we have the Red Bull racing team. Very, very cool story. And, to think that we're basically the most winning brand in motorsport. In fact, the only name that has more victories to it is Ferrari, one of the most celebrated constructors ever. So we are motorsport, we are Formula One, we are back where we belong.
There's no better way to end that. It's Max's lucky charm as well when he drives to his one of his Monacos. So this watch, this brand, this mark, this whole wonderful institution that is TAG Heuer is embedded with Formula One. They are back. The first race is this week. Are you excited? Like inside yourself, like
extremely excited.
You love this stuff.
Absolutely. I have to admit that when I officially heard the news that we were going to be returning to Formula One, I cried. And then the second moment was when they showed us the trackside placement of our logo. I cried once more because it's extremely emotional for me. As a kid, I grew up watching Formula One in the 1990s and seeing the logo. This is like that visceral memory that you have, this flashback to seeing the red and green logo on the screen and watching these guys, battle on track and, seeing these amazing moments in motorsport. So for me as a fan since I was a kid, it's just incredible to have played a small role in this story.
It's going to be a great year. I hope this isn't our last chat this year. Thanks for watching. Do you agree with me? Do you feel that visceral reconnection to TAG, a brand that's been inseparable from Formula One? Tell us below, and also tell us what is the watch that reminds you most of Formula One. Is it the Formula One, or is it one of the many other models that we've seen today? Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Nick, you're a champion. Subscribe and like Time+Tide for more stuff like this, and we'll see you soon.